As said, my name is Michael Brown. I'm the former Undersecretary of Homeland Security, the Director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency from 2000 until August, September of 2005. I'm probably most well known infamously for Hurricane Katrina, a disaster of amazing proportions in the United States of America, for which there are amazing things that we need to learn. So what I want to do is as we go through the presentations of the four panelists, I want to set somewhat of a tone for our discussions, a tone of frankness and a tone of honesty about what we can do and what we cannot do. For example, I get a chuckle when I read the summary of our presentation. Natural disasters, causes, consequences, and implications for effective responses. Natural disasters represent a type of calamity for which we have only a limited capacity to prevent and prepare for. I've heard now for some 12 hours as the faculty met and we've had our discussions about how we are all experts. Everyone in the room has an expertise in a particular topic, a particular portion of disasters, response, recovery, mitigation against. There's a group missing out of this group of experts. Someone totally missing. Does anyone know who's missing in this room? I mean, you're the experts. We've had government speakers. I'm a former government official. We have experts of all. We have the private sector, the NGOs, non-government organizations. Who's missing in the room? Anyone? Could be, but there's a group missing. Citizens. Ordinary citizens, whether they're Koreans, Vietnamese, Chinese, Australian, Americans, wherever they're from, we're missing citizens. Let me explain to you why that's so important. One of the criticisms of the American response to Hurricane Katrina was our failure to get people out of the area of operations, out of the danger zone, to safety in a quick enough time. One of the failures that we had, our inability to do so, was the inability of the average citizen in New Orleans to understand the risk of the area they lived in, to understand the dangers of the area they lived in. I'll be very blunt. Part of the most hardest hit area of New Orleans is an area called the Lower Ninth Ward. It's an area of extreme poverty, an area that is very low in education. Generations have lived in this poverty for decades, for generations. Their world is a very small world, a 2 or 3 city block area in which their grocery store is located, probably their school, their church or their synagogue, their place of worship, their postal service where they get their mail, their letters, all within a 2 or 3 block area. Now imagine that you've grown up in that kind of environment. You know there are hurricanes, you know there are storms and disasters, but for the first time in your life or your family's life, someone in the government has said to you, I want you to pack up everything that you can, and I want you to travel hundreds of miles away from danger into safety. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to go. Asking them to travel from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is about 90 miles, would be the same as asking all of us to pack up this afternoon and fly to Mars. We would have no clue how to do it. Where to get that transportation, how to get there, would be virtually impossible for all of us to travel to Mars this afternoon. Yet that's what we were asking American citizens to do, that based on their demographic and based upon their education, they did not have the ability to do so. We failed completely to communicate to them the risk of the area they lived in and how to take care of themselves. Consequently, people did what they felt the most comfortable with, which was stay home. So as the storm came in, the levees began to break and the floodwaters began to rise. New Orleans, for those of you who are not aware of it, New Orleans most of it resides below sea level. It's protected by a series of levees and dikes that have been poorly maintained by government agencies for decades or longer. As those dikes began to breach, you see if the levees are topped, if the floodwaters are just pushed over the top, that will eventually reach equilibrium and it will stop. But if the levees are breached, if there is a break in the levees, those floodwaters will continue to move in until they rise to their level of equilibrium at the outside, and then it has nowhere to go. That water simply stays. So people who have never been taught how to take care of themselves now do the only thing they can do. Rise to safety, stay in their homes, go to their rooftops, and wait for someone to come and rescue them. We have failed, I believe, as emergency managers, as disaster experts, to include the most important group that we all care about, we all study, we all try to figure out ways to make our systems and our protocols better, but we never talk about how do we translate all of our knowledge and expertise into a working knowledge for the average citizen. And the failure to do so, the absence of doing that, means that no matter what great plans all of the experts in this room come up with, they will be for naught. Because if we don't transfer that knowledge, that understanding of risk and what they can do to help themselves, disasters will continue to occur, people will continue to die, and governments will continue to be blamed. So my challenge for this group, this panel, and for you at large is to think about how do you take your understanding, whether it's in the field of nuclear radiation, whether it's in the field of pandemics, how do you rationally and reasonably inform the general public about what they should know about how to respond in times of disaster? So with that, I will close, turn it over to my panelists for their presentations, then we'll take a coffee break, and then afterwards we'll come back and we'll have the group discussion. Thank you very much.